But yeah.
Speaking of which, our next topic is going to be this exactly, about how millennials are making more money, but at the same time, right now where we live in inflation, high costs, and energy costs as well.
They're talking about buying land. Guys, look, I'm going to keep it a buck. I think buying land's a fucking waste.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, I genuinely think buying land is a waste. So many people ask me about buying land. Guys, I don't fuck with land. I think it's a big-ass fucking waste.
Something that's going to make you money, like instantly, then maybe. But even then, I'd be cautious about it.
A lot of you guys buy land in random-ass places, too. Like, bro, look, if you want to buy land in fucking Wynwood in Miami, cool. Be my guest. You're sitting on a couple $1 million.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's a bunch of people. If you go to Wynwood, Miami right now, there's a bunch of open fucking lots that have like signs around them saying building coming soon, blah, blah, blah. Those are smart people that bought that land for $500,000, whatever it may be. Now it's going to be worth millions because they're going to put a fucking a high rise there. Yeah. Then we could have a conversation about buying fucking land. But in general, buying land's a waste of money, man. You don't get the same tax write-offs because you can't cost segregate it at all. And for you guys that are wondering, cost segregation is based on the actual property, the wear and tear of the house. But if you have land, because when you do cost segregation, you can't put the land into the cost segregation survey. So you're not able to derive the same benefits from a tax perspective for buying land. And let's be honest here, a lot of times land, you're not making money on it. You just buy it and you kind of just sit on it, unless you have like a parking lot on it or something like that.
And you got to pay taxes on it too.
Yeah. So
it's costing you money.
I don't know. I think land is stupid because I saw someone in here talking about buying land. Fuck that shit, bro. Like, unless you're like a very savvy investor, you got your portfolio set up, you're making cash flow, whatever, you want to dabble in land and, it's a long-term thing, whatever, you got you know what you're doing, fine. But most of you guys that are watching this show right now, bro, land is, nah.
If I had a network of developers that I knew personally, then I'll buy land. But other than that, I'm not buying land.
Yeah, it's a big fucking waste. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
okay, cool. So we got the article here, Bills?
Yes.
All right, millennials are wealthier now than their parents who are at the same age in drastic turnaround report. I got a video here as well. Yeah, you can play it. Just the first part. Fun fact, he's in Orlando as well.
I spend the day in my steel-toe boots.
Oh, this commercial. Lame. Anyhow, yeah, he talks about what's going on right now with the current market and millennials, and it's really crazy what he's talking about with the...
Yeah, I think most of us in America would define the middle class as somebody who can work a 40-hour-a-week career and can have the income to purchase the average home in America, and possibly even have a spouse at home, raise a couple children, take a 2-week vacation, have a car that's 5 to 10 years old, nothing fancy, still turning the lights off in the house. Like a lot of us grew up middle class, and we watched what middle class was in the 80s and 90s as millennials. And nowadays, that's what's moved the goalpost more than anything is the housing market. Because just 5 years ago, the median household income was about 60, 70,000, and that's what you needed to qualify for a home. Now in 2024, the average home is $400,000, $420,000 for most of Americans, and you need about $120,000 as a income to have a shot at qualifying for that house. So just in the housing market alone, I feel is what shifted the goalpost. And if someone can afford to purchase a home, which is fine, maybe people are going through struggles or need more time, you're then forced to rent because you need somewhere to live. But now the rent prices are taking up 30 to 40% of people's income, making it harder for them to save for a house. So it's this perpetual cycle that has keeping people out of the middle class, which is what we're seeing at a rapid pace here in the last few years. So 120.
So nowadays, people bring up middle class. I think it's pretty much like dead. I think now where middle class is basically like either you're successful and you have a high paying career, or you're not successful and you're working at minimum wage or average minimum wage. What do you think about that, middle class?
Yeah, I mean it's slowly evaporating, right? Because I don't. It's either I would say if anything, it's more along the lines of you're either poor or upper middle class. But this whole middle class thing, it's not even, because you could barely make a living with a middle class salary. Like you could really like you
I mean, other than paying your mortgage and paying for the cars
and food,
because
food is outrageous right now.
To me, like vacation and maybe once a year if you're lucky. At that much?
50K a year, yeah.
Yeah, because
50K a year, you could provide for yourself as a single guy. But like for a family, man, I remember you used to be able to provide for a family with 50K per year when I was like growing up. Now you can't. There's no way.
like you mentioned,
No
most
you're gonna be
properties
struggling.
now are 400K plus.
Yeah.
That is not cheap. And then you add in the cost of living,
Yeah.
food, groceries, and then car
I
prices.
think the average medium is like when we talk about Chris, what was it, like three to 400,000?
Yep.
And nationwide, 300,000 to 500,000.
Yep. So you're gonna need a lot more money, and as well, everyday expenses are even higher. So I think middle class is pretty much like gone. Upper middle class is a good thing to say as well, but honestly, guys, like this is why people nowadays, especially millennials, don't want to buy. They just want to rent. They want to travel. They want to go out to eat, and they want to enjoy life, but not have a heavy bill on their expenses. And I get it because
They'd rather rent, which I think is stupid a lot of times. But
it is, but their mindset is, okay, I could spend all this money and be burdened by this weight on my shoulder, which is the property, or just rent and move when I want to move. So the freedom of moving and having that access ability is what's driving them to say, you know what, I'll just travel, rent, and then eat wherever I want. I mean, I get it, but it's not smart though, because you're paying rent to somebody's mortgage when you pay your own rent, which is your mortgage. But
yeah, I mean, renting makes sense sometimes. I mean, actually, it makes sense most of the time, right? Like buying is not always necessarily the best. But my issue is that they don't own any assets. That's the biggest thing.
yeah,
It's like they don't have any assets. If you want to rent where you live, that's fine. But do you own assets? And most of them don't.
because let's say you were pretty scared about spending money, right? But let's say you bought a property, maybe.
Well, also keep in mind, millennials, that's our age group. They have the Dave Ramsey advice. Don't have debt,
True.
right? You know,
True.
save your money. Like, you know, it's this whole like doom of having debt in general, and they think all debt is bad. But the reality is, it's only really consumer debt, because Dave Ramsey teaches millennials and even people like our age, like, he tells you don't even take a mortgage to buy a house. Dave Ramsey.
But to be fair, people should follow his advice though, because most people are not good with money. So they're gonna do the worst things possible to the extreme.
For
So-
idiots, yes.
So generally,
for idiots that don't
Yeah.
understand how credit works and how debt really works,
Yeah.
especially when you live in a country like America that's run by a central fucking bank. Like debt, if you know what you're doing, is very intelligent. I like how, because like Robert Kiyosaki, Grant Cardone, Ken McElroy, these guys talk about debt where you can use debt as a fucking asset, which is true, because because we live in a debt monetary based system. If you're able to use a debt intelligently and acquire assets that pay for themselves, then the debt is 100% worth it. So,
Okay. I mean, honestly, bro, from my opinion, what millennials should do is they should work their asses off, I want to say overtime as much as possible, and then at that point, use that money to buy property. And if you can't do that, work 2 or 3 jobs minimum. But
yeah, you got to suffer for
but you're
a
gonna
few
say,
years.
oh, I'm tired from work, I want to watch TikTok. All right, buddy. Well, then that's where you're gonna live at. Rent forever and die as a renter.